Welcome to the StoryCorps podcast edition of the Oral History and Memories of Daniel Timlin, founder of the Advanced Combat Federation and the American Advanced Combat System at the Mid-Michigan Academy of Martial Arts. What is your name and your relationship to Dan Timlin?
My name is Rickey Caldwell. I was a student of the Mid-Michigan Academy. Dan Timlin was my sensei, and for a time I was one of the black belt instructors.
When and where did you first meet Dan Timlin?
The first time that I met Sensei was during a black belt club training. At the time, I was a green or purple belt, definitely an intermediate student, because if I recall correctly, during those days you had to make it to green belt in order to be invited into the black belt club. And I remember doing grappling, forward rolls, break falling, and lock flow studies. And if I recall correctly, it was like on a Friday night back then when they were held. And that's my first time I can recall meeting Sensei outside of just seeing him in the school or in the parking lot.
What was your life like, or what were you doing prior to meeting Dan Timlin?
Great question. At the time, I had recently graduated from college in December of 1999. Working in industry. I was working in Southfield. And I believe in the beginning I was living in East Lansing and eventually moved to Southfield. Probably around April of 2000, it's like, man, I need to do something. I'm finally out of school. I can seek and pursue things that I've always loved, and I've always loved the martial arts. And I just remember driving past the school and seeing that. So one day I was like, hey, why not just go in? And so I joined the school, loved it, and the rest took off from there. I have an obsessive personality, so I just jumped in, and I just remember sitting in class and seeing what the advanced students were doing. And at the time, after the end of the white belt adult class, then the black belts trained. And you can see some of the advanced things that they were doing with the stick fighting and the grappling and a little bit of that. Try to leave real slow so I can just, glance and say, man, I want to get there one day. So that's what was it. I was just fresh out of college, doing nothing in my evenings, gaining weight, and I was looking for a lifestyle change.
What changes have you made or seen in your life after meeting Dan Timlin, and how did that or does that make you feel?
Given the hindsight, right now, we're talking about this and it's 2021. And at the time, when I really started to develop a relationship with Dan Timlin, it was after 9/11. I've been training at the school. I started April 2000. You see, so right around February 2001, I want to say that 9/11 had happened, and I believe 9/11 happened in September 2001. And so I was probably around the brown belt, got laid off from my work, and I was an engineer, done it for, at this time, almost 2 years, graduated in 99. And it was like, man, I have a choice. I can start looking for another engineering job or do something that I was completely passionate about. Why not? I'm young, I'm in my 20s. Let's go and do this. And so, I talked to Sensei. At the time, I got laid off on October, exactly 1 month after 9/11. Things were really bad in the automotive industry in Detroit. And Mr. McNay was working there, and Mr. McNay was already a black belt instructor. So, and I know Mr. McNay and Mr. Timlin were talking about a full-time position as well. So it's like, I'm gonna be upfront with you. I'm talking to Mr. McNay, and let's see what he does, and then we can see if we can find a position for you. So right around February 2002, he's like, yeah, you know what? Come aboard. There's a curriculum we have for becoming a black belt instructor. What are your goals? And I was talking about school ownership at the time, and he kind of took me under his wing, him and Miss Timlin, and started teaching me a lot of things. And even at the time, given my age, my mindset wasn't quite right. I remember the first time he asked me to listen to this tape. And it was by a guy named Les Brown, who's a motivational speaker. And, because I've been unemployed. I was unemployed from October into February. Or, yeah. I want to say that. October to about February. And, just living off my savings and stuff. It's like, hey, listen to this. And at the time, I was like, man, what is this? Because Les came in and talked about, my mom. And you can look him up on YouTube. My mom was a crack addict. I grew up super poor. I was illiterate. And he's going through his life struggle. And I was wondering, why is he having me listening to this? So, so to make the thing short, I probably said something, and then I remember Miss Timlin came in and said, if Mr. Sensei asks you to listen to something, you ought to be open-minded. And so from there, that started teaching me to be open-minded, to be teachable, and to let go of certain things and leave room for growth. And that started a part of my spiritual and adulting and leadership training. And a lot of the stuff that I learned through becoming a black belt instructor, going through the school ownership program, I've learned a lot, how to go up and talk to people about marketing, accountability, setting milestones, setting goals, organization, structure, personal leadership, right? Because it starts with me. So there was a lot that I learned. Tremendous. So right now, currently, I'm a professor, and a lot that he taught me, I've passed down to my students. Even when I was in grad schools, there's students to this day. It's like, Sensei Dan Timlin said this, because I've always give credit, because Sensei also said always give the proper attribution and credit. If you didn't come up with the ideas or the material yourself. So a lot of people who've never even stepped foot into the dojo know who he is and know about the life skills and the philosophies that he taught us. So it's profound, and that's just one area, and that had created, we used to talk about a burning desire, and passing that on to my students who study engineering. You have to have that burning desire. Engineering is not easy. 50% of the people quit, but quitting is a choice, right? Once you get uncomfortable, your mind, you quit in your mind before you ever realize how far and what you can do. So it's like hundreds of those little things that I've taken from my relationship with the Mid-Michigan Academy, with Sensei, and with Mrs. Timlin.
What are some of your favorite memories of yourself and Dan Timlin?
Well, there are so many, right? Probably one of the first things I remember, it was a brown belt, and we did a summer training. I think we closed down the school for a week, and all of us went up to Ludington. It was an open camp for everybody. I was a brown belt at the time, and just spending time training for one whole week of nothing but martial arts and getting to know my peers and my martial arts brothers and sisters. Another thing, after I became a black belt and an instructor, is just our late night conversations with myself and Mr. Dobbins and Mr. Bear. And, we'll maybe close the school around 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then we'll be there to 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure there was time we were there too, just joking and talking about the history of the martial arts, and all of the names of different martial artists and their contributions and stories around those. I remember, and I think the guy's name was Villabreo, and he was sitting on a park bench, and somebody came to harass him and tried to rob him or accost him in some manner, and he had a rolled up newspaper, and he was just beating this guy real bad with a newspaper. It's like, "Come here, little boy, you make me laugh," and yeah, so it's a lot of little stories about that, and about his experience, running the schools, and the stories of different people and different students that came through, and some of the things that he's tried with the traveling kickboxing team, and a lot of things like that. Another thing that I deeply appreciated was, like, on my birthdays, I lived there in Massachusetts by myself. Most of my family lived in North Carolina, and he'd come pick me up, and Sensei and Miss Timlin would take me out to dinner for my birthday. And I remember he took all of us to Mackinac Island, all the black belt instructors at the time. So it was myself, Mr. Bear, and Mr. Dobbins, and we went on the island, rent bikes, rode around the island, did training on the beach, So just picture being on a nice sandy beach, and the sun's going down, and you're doing martial arts training on the beach. So it's pretty amazing and pretty cool. So there's so many. I can probably spend a long time just talking about these different things. So yeah.
What is the most memorable of these memories, and why?
The most memorable? I guess it would be the same for many students. And for me, it was testing for my black belt. And I remember the black belt testing panel, which consists of Sensei Timlin and Miss Timlin, would sit at a table. It was a 3-day event plus an additional supplementary day. I remember coming in at 7 in the morning and probably leaving at 5, 6 at night. It was an all-day event, and you're going through this thing, and all you hear is like, okay, for calisthenics, you got to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100, and we went through every belt. Self-defense, weaponry, grappling, entries, takedowns, and controls, the philosophy stuff, right? And you had to pass all these exams, and it was just a long thing. And you went through that crucible, that fire, right? And you were forged and transformed. And there was a sign on the wall at the time. It's like, don't look at a black belt about something you get. It's about what you became. And I feel blessed and honored to have the opportunity to be tested with Sensei Dan Timlin on my testing panel. Uh, so that's probably one of the most memorable memories that I've had.
What are some of the important life lessons you learned in your relationship with Dan Timlin that you carry with you and share with others?
Well, yeah, there's a lot. A big part of that is the martial arts philosophy. That was one of the first times in my life where, we sit down and talk about philosophy. And we were talking about things like fulfillment and goals and focus, right? Um, and so just talking about those things and goal setting strategies. I sit down with my students every day, and being an instructor and learning how to teach it to even kids. Know what you want, have a plan, have a success coach, review your goals and renew your goals, and then elevating that to the adults. What's your plan? Where do you want to go? Just start off with that question. And how bad do you want to have that? Right? The single mindedness. Because a lot of people want a lot of things, but are you willing to do the work? I know one thing Sensei used to say, you can have anything and do anything you want in this life. You can't do everything. There is opportunities calls. And you have to go out there and get it. And you can't be distracted. So write down your goals. Review your goals every day. Make them measurable. Have check marks on them. Right? So you can go in and see what your progress are, or your progress is, and then attack and confess. Right? How is it going? Why isn't it going that well? I remember we used to have to go out and do VIPs, to help recruit and grow the school, and we would give out these passes to people. Oh, in the beginning, I used to hate that. I was like, man, because I had this conception that, I was bothering people, I was harassing people, I was, and this long line of things of why I couldn't be successful. And then along came a guy and Mr. Dobbins wasn't impeded by that. And he'll go out and he'll be killing. He's like, Caldwell, how many how many VIPs were you able to get, and how many people you talked to? And it wasn't, I start to tell a story, and he's like, you know what, Mr. Caldwell, this box can only, I made this box a certain size, and this box can only fit a number. Right? It can't fit a story. I just need the number. And then later he'll go back and help dissect, what's going on. And a lot of it really, truly was in my own head. Right? And then I had to see, Mr. Dobbins went out and did really well. Mr. Fowler went out and did really well. Miss Timlin would go out and do really well. And so there were certain just mental roadblocks I had to get past. And so, he always provided those opportunities. And those were my moments of truth. And, I was going to keep hitting those walls until I break through them. Another thing he would often teach us is like, well, how's that working for you? Right? And think how much better you would have been now if you would have done this earlier. And so there was always about self-evaluation, right? But also growth. One thing he's always taught was that you have to have healthy human relationships, because in the end, a lot of this stuff doesn't matter, right? Martial arts isn't just about punching and kicking. There's a lot of idiots who are great fighters, but they're completely dysfunctional in life. And then, so how can we take the martial arts to transcend the physical warlike aspects, the self-defense, to be able to do like kagitas in life with different problems and obstacles that might arise? And so that was the biggest thing about transcending. And I use those very same principles to have students transcend the difficulties and mental anguish of a lot of things that I've taught, whether and primarily it's applied to engineering courses and academically underprepared students. So there's like generations. Mr. RJ is now teaching, and Miss Holdsberg is teaching, and they're teaching a lot of the things that he taught me. Because at the time I just used martial arts as a vehicle to teach those things, because of course they transcend, right? It's like with the Wing Chun, you got to get rid of the obstacle. You got to get it away. And in life, that could be communications, with your spouse. And then you have to then take that and do the self-examination. You got to attack and confess. When I did this made my wife feel this way. How's that working for me? Do I want to keep going through this? Right? And what changes do I need to make? And sit down and write that out. So those are big things that I learned and that I pass on to a lot of my students, and still use to this day in my human relationships with other people.
If you could go back in time, what would you like to do or say?
I think I'm very blessed in this aspect, is that when I came back to train, I want to say 2012, 2013, that, I had an opportunity to sit down with him, and we had several conversations back then, and and as always, I'm sorry for some of the things that had happened. I appreciate a lot that you've taught me. You had helped um, affect who I am today and the man that I've become and the educator and the adult that I've become. And I love you and I appreciate you for those things. So it's one of those situations where that I had the opportunity to actually say that, and I know one thing that stuck with me to make me be able to say that, because once he said, if you go through life being hard and callous and not feeling anything, that's not a life worth living. And that lesson kept popping up in my life over and over and over again, about emotional unavailability and different things, and being hard and lack of emotions. So yeah, so that set the ball rolling and planted the seed, and then eventually I came full circle, and we were able to have a conversation, and I was able to actually say that to him while he was still with us. So yeah, and I still feel the same way to this day.
This edition of the StoryCorps podcast of the oral history and memories of Daniel Timlin was produced by the Mid-Michigan Academy of Martial Arts, producer Tammy Timlin, and edited by Rickey Caldwell.